most people can't find Uruguay on a map. If they can, they picture a quiet, unremarkable buffer state, a footnote sandwiched between the continental titans of Brazil and Argentina. They hear about its progressive laws, its stability, and label it the Switzerland of South America, a neat and tidy box for a country that is anything but. This peaceful image, however, is a carefully constructed facade, built upon the ashes of a history so brutal, it almost erased the nation's soul. The tranquility you see today on the streets of Montevideo isn't a sign of simplicity. It's a hard-won scar, a deliberate political choice made by a society that stared into the abyss. This journey isn't about visiting Uruguay. It's about peeling back its layers to understand how a nation can be shattered, and then choose, consciously and defiantly, to become a beacon of hope. Join me as we uncover the secrets hidden in plain sight. At first glance, the cliché holds up perfectly. You arrive in Montevideo, and the first thing that strikes you is the lack of frantic energy. The air doesn't crackle with the same chaotic electricity that defines so many other great Latin American capitals. With a population of just under 3.5 million people spread across a generous 176,000 square kilometers, the sense of personal space is a luxury you feel immediately. Compared to the dizzying density of a place like Bangladesh, with 169 million people in a smaller area, Uruguay feels like a deep, collective exhalation. The world knows Uruguay through the explosive talent of its footballers. Diego Forlan, Luis Suarez, Edinson Cavani. Warriors on the pitch who project an image of fierce, unyielding intensity known as Garra Charta, a term embodying grit and courage. Yet, off the field, the national character appears to be the polar opposite, one of understated calm, intellectualism, and progressive thought. This is the nation that, as the story goes, became the first in the world to establish the 8-hour workday by law in 1915, a revolutionary concept at the time. A country that granted women the right to divorce on their sole request and the right to vote in 1917, far ahead of many so-called developed nations. Today, that legacy continues. It's a fiercely secular state where church and state are so separate that religious holidays have been renamed on the public calendar. Christmas is Family Day, and Holy Week is Tourism Week. It's a place where same-sex marriage was legalized with little controversy in 2013, and where, in the same year, it became the first country in the world to fully legalize and regulate the production, sale, and consumption of cannabis. This wasn't a move to appease stoners, it was a pragmatic, political decision to fight drug trafficking, treat addiction as a public health issue, and reinforce the principle of individual liberty. From the outside, it looks like a utopian blueprint. A stable, high-income economy in a continent often plagued by hyperinflation and political upheaval. A strong social safety net, a thriving and large middle class, and a commitment to equality that feels almost radical. It's easy to land here, admire the elegant blend of classic Spanish and Portuguese architecture, watch people leisurely strolling along the coast, and believe the simple story of the Switzerland of South America. But this peaceful narrative is the final chapter of a very dark book. To understand it, you must first read the ones that came before. The ones written in blood, fear, and rebellion. The calm of today is not an inheritance, it's a deliberate political and cultural reconstruction. And the first clue to this hidden history isn't in a museum, but in the hands of almost every single person you see on the street. Before you can understand Uruguay's politics, its history, or its people, you must understand mate. You will see it everywhere, an almost universal appendage to the Uruguayan body. people walking, driving, studying in the park, working in an office, all clutching a hollowed-out, gourd-esque calabash, a metal straw called a bombilla, and a thermos of hot, but not boiling, water tucked under their arm. To call it tea is a profound understatement. It is the lifeblood of the nation, the invisible thread that stitches the social fabric together. In a country so constitutionally secular, where religious instruction is banned from public schools, mate is the closest thing to a shared national religion. The ritual is everything. It's a circle of trust and a performance of community. One person, the sebador or server, takes on the responsibility. They prepare the mate, filling the gourd about 2/3 full with the bitter, grassy yerba. They tilt it, creating a small mountain, montaita, on one side, and pour cool water into the empty space to moisten the leaves and protect them from the shock of hot water. Only then do they insert the bombilla and pour the hot water. The sebador always drinks the first infusion, traditionally the strongest and most bitter, as a courtesy to the group, ensuring the next person receives a smoother brew. Then, the gourd is passed. You drink the entire serving in one go, a few satisfying gulps. You do not sip. When the gourd is empty, you pass it directly back to the sebador, who refills it and passes it to the next person in the circle. Crucially, you do not say, "Thank you, Richest," until you have had enough and are leaving the circle. To say it any earlier is a signal that you are finished, a polite refusal of the next round. I learned this the hard way, saying, "Gracious," after my first turn and watching the gourd skip over me for the rest of the afternoon. It's an incredibly intimate act of communion. You are sharing a single vessel, a single straw. It's a silent contract of friendship and equality. In this circle, hierarchies of age or status dissolve. It's a ritual born from the gauchos, the legendary, nomadic cowboys of the Pampas, who would share it around a campfire under a vast, star-lit sky. It became the drink of the country, a symbol of solidarity that cuts across social class, age, and political affiliation. But think about what it truly represents in the context of Uruguayan history. This ritual of sharing, of unspoken trust, of community, survived and thrived through a period when sharing dissident ideas could get you killed, when trust was a fatal liability, and when community was being systematically dismantled by the state. The quiet, persistent act of passing the mate became a subtle act of defiance, a way of preserving the social fabric when the government was trying to tear it apart. To understand the progressive, open society of today, you must first visit the ghosts of that not-so-distant past. Uruguay's story is not complete without confronting its darkest chapter, the civic-military dictatorship that ruled with an iron fist from 1973 to 1985. Before the coup, Uruguay was in turmoil. Economic stagnation and social unrest had given rise to the Tupamaros, a highly effective and audacious urban guerrilla movement. Their actions, which included kidnappings and bank robberies, destabilized the country and provided the military with the pretext it needed to seize power. What followed was not the chaotic violence seen in other coups. It was a cold, calculated, and systematic campaign of state terror. For 12 years, this quiet country became a laboratory for psychological warfare and repression. It was dubbed the torture chamber of Latin America, holding the grim record for the highest number of political prisoners per capita in the entire world. An estimated 1 in every 50 citizens was detained for political reasons, and 1 in 500 was imprisoned long-term. A culture of silence, paranoia, and fear, known as El Preciso, the process, permeated every aspect of life. Neighbors spied on neighbors. University departments were purged. Books were burned. Independent thought was a crime. The goal was not just to eliminate opponents, but to break the spirit of the entire population. This national trauma is the absolute key to understanding modern Uruguay. The progressive laws, the fierce protection of human rights, the almost obsessive focus on democratic stability. They are not just enlightened policies. They are a direct, visceral reaction against the horrors of that period. They are a national, never again, written into law. The transition back to democracy in 1985 was not a clean break. It was complicated and deeply wounded by the controversial Ley de Caducidad de la Pretensión Punitiva del Estado, or the expiry law. This law effectively granted amnesty to military and police personnel for the human rights abuses they committed during the dictatorship. It was fiercely debated, put to national referendums twice in 1989 and 2009, and both times the population narrowly voted to uphold it, choosing a fragile peace over retributive justice. For decades, Uruguay wrestled with this impossible question to move forward. Do you forget, or do you prosecute? This struggle between memory and reconciliation shaped the country. It explains the almost militant defense of free speech and the deep-seated distrust of any concentrated power. It wasn't until 2011 that the law was finally annulled by Congress, reopening the door for prosecutions. The peace you feel in Uruguay today is not a passive state. It is an active, ongoing project. Perhaps no single person embodies this journey more than Jose Peep Mujica. A former Tupamaro guerrilla, he spent 12 years in prison, much of it in solitary confinement at the bottom of a well. He was tortured and pushed to the brink of insanity. Yet, he emerged not with vengeance, but with a radical philosophy of humility and forgiveness, eventually becoming president of the nation that imprisoned him. His story, from revolutionary to political prisoner to world-renowned leader, is the story of Uruguay itself. A story of confronting the past and choosing a difficult, but hopeful, path forward. And that path has a rhythm that beats loudest on Sunday afternoons in the barrios of Montevideo, while tourists might associate Latin America with the sensuous drama of the tango, which, to be fair, is also very much a part of the culture here. To find Uruguay's true heartbeat, you must follow the sound of drums. This is Candom, recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Candombe is not just music, it's a living, breathing, marching piece of history. Born from the enslaved Africans, brought to the Rio de la Plata in the 18th and 19th centuries, Candombe was a powerful act of cultural survival. In their limited free time, they would gather in community halls called Salas de Nación, organized by their African ethnic origins, to play the drums of their homeland. It was a way to connect with their heritage, to maintain a sense of community, and to speak a rhythmic language the masters couldn't understand or suppress. The rhythm is built around a trinity of drums: the small, high-pitched chico, the mid-range improvisational repique, and the deep, resonant piano, which together create a complex, hypnotic, and irresistibly joyful sound. Every Sunday, especially in the historic Afro-Uruguayan neighborhoods of Palermo and Barrio Sur in Montevideo, the llamadas, the calls begin. This is not a performance for tourists. It is a fundamental community ritual. Groups of drummers, the curdas de tambors, take to the streets. The sound echoes off the old apartment buildings. People pour out of their homes, not just to watch, but to participate. Children dance, grandmothers clap from their balconies, and the entire neighborhood becomes a moving, pulsating celebration of life. Leading the procession are traditional figures: the Escobaro with his broom, sweeping away bad spirits, the Mama Vija and Gramilero, representing the wisdom of the elders, and the dazzling vedettes, female dancers whose energy electrifies the parade. In the context of Uruguayan history, candomblé is profoundly significant. During the dictatorship, public gatherings were forbidden. The drums of candomblé, a symbol of community and free expression, were forced indoors into silence. Its roaring return to the streets with the return of democracy in 1985 was a powerful statement. It was the sound of a culture reclaiming its public space, the sound of freedom itself. It is a vibrant celebration of the Afro-Uruguayan heritage that has so deeply enriched the nation's identity, a crucial counterpoint to the often told story of a purely European immigrant nation. It reminds us that Uruguay's identity is not monolithic, it's a rich, complex, and sometimes contradictory tapestry. And nowhere is that tapestry more visible than in its cities. To truly grasp Uruguay, you have to walk its streets, not just as a visitor, but as an observer of its living contradictions. Start in Montevideo, along the feature that defines the city's entire existence, La Rambla. This isn't just a seaside promenade, it's a 22-kilometer-long public living room, the city's collective backyard. It is the most democratic space in the country. Here, the wealthy from the upscale Positos neighborhood jog past families from working class barrios setting up a small portable grill, a parrillero for an afternoon barbecue. Teenagers skateboard, old couples hold hands, fishermen cast their lines, and everyone, absolutely everyone, is sharing mate. La Rambla is a physical manifestation of the Uruguayan ideal of an integrated, accessible public life. It's a stark contrast to the privatized beaches that dominate so many other coastal cities around the world. From the open expanse of La Rambla, venture through the ceremonial gateway, the Puerta de la Ciudadela, into the heart of the past, Ciudad Villa, the old city. Here, the cobblestone streets and colonial buildings tell the story of a city founded as a military fortress, a pawn in the epic struggle between the Spanish and Portuguese empires. You can feel the weight of history in the imposing, eclectic architecture of the Palacio Salvo and the solemnity of Plaza Independencia, where the mausoleum of the national hero, José Gervasio Artigas, stands guard. This area is a mix of beautifully restored buildings, housing trendy cafes and art galleries, and other structures still bearing the elegant decay of time. A constant dialogue between past and present. Then, for a complete sensory assault, dive into the Mercado del Porto, the port market. The air is thick with the sacred smoke and sizzle of the parrilla. This is the temple of asado, the Uruguayan barbecue. It's an overwhelming spectacle. Mountains of beef, sausages chorizo, blood sausage morcilla, and sweetbreads amalajas are grilled over open wood fires. You can sit at the bar and watch the asador work his magic while sipping a medio y medio, a traditional sparkling wine blend. It's loud, chaotic, and utterly delicious. Here you understand that for all its progressive politics, Uruguay's soul is still tied to the land, to the cattle that outnumber people by nearly 4-to-1, and to the gaucho culture that romanticizes a life of rugged independence. But Montevideo is not the only story. A short, beautiful ferry ride across the Rio de la Plata lies Colonia del Sacramento, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Walking through its Barrio Histórico is like stepping back into the 17th century. Its quiet, tree-lined streets and rustic Portuguese colonial houses offer a different kind of peace. One of preserved history, a stark contrast to Montevideo's bustling, modern-day tranquility. And then, there is the ultimate paradox, Punta del Este, the glamorous, ostentatious, stained tropez of South America. Here, Yachts line the marina. Luxury boutiques dot the streets, and international millionaires flock to its pristine beaches. It's home to the iconic La Mano, a giant sculpture of a hand emerging from the sand. Punta del Este represents a side of Uruguay that coexists uneasily with its egalitarian ideals. A playground for global capital that feels a world away. Candombe, drummers of Montevideo, or the simple life of the gauchos in the interior. These three cities, Montevideo, Colonia, and Punta del Este, represent the three faces of the nation: its present, its past, and its globalized future. This brings us to the central paradox of daily life in modern Uruguay. It is a nation celebrated for its social equality, yet it is also, by a significant margin, the most expensive country in South America. The story of the $8 hamburger and the $4 latte is not an exaggeration. The cost of living rivals that of some European nations, a shock to many visitors arriving from neighboring Argentina or Brazil, where their money goes much further. How can this be? The answer lies in the very stability and progressive policies that make it so attractive. A stable currency, high import tariffs designed to protect local industries, a value-added tax IV that is among the highest in the region, and strong labor protections with mandated wages and benefits all contribute to higher prices for goods and services. The groundbreaking Plan Siebel, which since 2007 has provided a free laptop and internet access to every public school student and teacher, is a perfect example. It's an incredible investment in the future, a testament to the nation's priorities. But it has to be paid for by the taxpayer. This creates a palpable tension for the average citizen. The minimum wage as of 2024 is around 23,700 Uruguayan pesos, or roughly 600 USD. The average salary hovers around 800, 900. These are respectable figures for the region, but they can be stretched thin against such high costs. It's a progressive paradise, but a pricey one. This is the modern Uruguayan compromise: a high quality of life, excellent public services, safety, and freedom, in exchange for a cost of living that demands financial discipline and prioritizes community well-being over cheap consumerism. So, when you see the tanned, calm faces of Uruguayans, which some might mistake for a life of ease, you are seeing something else entirely. You are seeing the quiet resilience of a people who carry the memory of a dark past, who actively participate in unique cultural rituals of community, and who navigate the economic realities of a nation that consciously chose stability and social welfare over being the cheapest option. They are not simply Latin American. They are not European. They are distinctly, complexly, and proudly Uruguayan. Uruguay teaches us that a nation's true character isn't found in its tourist brochures or easy labels, but in the contradictions it embraces. It's a country that built a progressive, peaceful future on the foundations of a deeply painful history. It champions secularism while practicing the sacred daily ritual of mate. It preaches equality while housing one of the most luxurious resorts on the continent. This small nation is not a simple, quiet haven. It is a dynamic, ongoing experiment in democracy, memory, and resilience. A powerful reminder that the most peaceful places are often the ones that have fought the hardest, and most thoughtfully, for it. What part of Uruguay's hidden stories surprised you the most? Share your thoughts or questions in the comments below. If this journey opened a new perspective for you, please share this video with a fellow traveler who loves to look deeper than the surface. And subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most fascinating and misunderstood places. Until next time, keep exploring.